Welcome back to part 2 of the great Prince Edward Island Lighthouse adventure ride. Last time we visited 14 lighthouses from Charlottetown to Tenere Island. In this, the second episode, we're going to again go from Charlottetown but northeast to find 9 more scattered along the coastline of Prince Edward Island. Our first stop today is going to be the St. Peter's Harbour Lighthouse. Now there are multiple ways to get here, but this dirt road section, I enjoy it, and I've never been up to St. Peter's Harbour Lighthouse before, and it looked wet on the map, so I thought I'd take the smaller bike to get up here. And as I approached the lighthouse, I found it was fairly wet, so I was glad I was on the smaller 700. After Parliament made an appropriation of $1,600 for range towers at the entrance of St. Peter's Harbour, tenders were invited for construction, and a contract for a sum of $555 was awarded to James Barclay of Ellerslie. The towers were completed in 1878 at a total cost of $1,031.12. Eldon Drake, a World War II veteran, was the last keeper of the range lights. He became the caretaker of the lights when they were electrified in 1963. The change saw the keeper Drake's annual salary fall from $490 a year to $150 a year. The St. Peter's Harbour Lighthouse was discontinued in the spring of 2008. The range lights at the harbour entrance have been discontinued, and several lighted buoys now mark the harbour. In 2017, the St. Harbour's Lighthouse was transferred to the St. Peter's Harbour's Lighthouse Society under the Heritage Light Protection Act and is now protected by the province of Prince Edward Island. This light was probably one of my favourite rides. It's quite a little adventure to get out here. The road is a little bit wet, but I hear it's a very touristy spot, so I would imagine the road will be fixed up and dried out before the tourist season gets into full swing. I was here in April, way before the tourist season starts, so it's expected that the road would be in a little bit of rough shape.
Proceed to highlighted route.
Dirt roads behind us. We're off to our next destination. Now I'm going to switch bikes for this one because I'm going to do all 8 lighthouses on one bike in one day, and the only way I can really do that is on the 1200. The Super Tenere eats miles like no other machine I've ever owned. About 37 kilometers from St. Peter's Harbour Lighthouse on the northeast shore of Prince Edward Island between St. Peter's Bay and East Point, Newfrage Pond, which is fed by the Newfrage River, which empties into the Gulf of St. Lawrence between 2 pairs of piers erected to stabilize the opening. Newfrage is French for shipwreck, and according to the oral history, survivors from a shipwreck in 1719 came ashore in this area and continued west and became the first settlers of St. Peter's Harbour. A combination wooden dwelling and lighthouse was erected at Shipwreck Point, just west of Newfrage Pond, in 1913 by Annandale Lumber Company for $3,213.81. Francis Frank McKinnon was the first keeper of the lights. The dwelling, which had 8 rooms, was painted white, while the lantern room was red, and the lighthouse was 11.5 meters tall and displayed a flashing white light. Frank served as the keeper of the light until 1917, when he drowned in a fishing accident setting traps on May the 12th. He couldn't swim. A story that has passed down through the McKinnon family over the years about a stormy night when the mechanism that rotated the light at Shipwreck Point failed, but Sarah, Frank's daughter, faithfully revolved the lens by hand all night long. She later received a letter from a captain thanking her for her diligent attention to the light, as he had been dependent on that light all night long. The blockhouse has been converted into a dwelling, and the lighthouse from 1913 today exhibits a 3-second flash followed by an eclipse of 2 seconds every 5 seconds. While traveling on the Prince Edward Island Lighthouse Tour, when you get to Shipwreck Point, take your time and go and visit New Fraiche Harbour. The beach here is absolutely phenomenal. There's lots of little places to eat, and there's lots of interesting things to see. I've crossed the New Fraiche Harbour Bridge many times, and every time I cross it, the word sketchy always resonates in the back of my mind. It's perfectly safe, and if you get the chance, do it. About 40 kilometers due east, past St. Margaret's, Clear Spring, Hermanville, Rockbarra, Priest Pond, Campbell's Cove, and North Lake is our next destination, East Point Lighthouse. As Prince Edward Island's major ports were not located along the north shore, the island's colony was reluctant to shoulder the entire burden of placing lighthouses on East Point and North Cape, as foreign vessels stood to benefit most from the navigational aids. In 1851, the House of Assembly of Prince Edward Island requested its Lieutenant Governor to enter communications with several governments of Canada, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, the imperial governments, both as respects to themselves and the United States, to ascertain which governments would help in the development of two lights at North Cape and East Point. Finally, in 1867, the East Point Lighthouse was lit for the first time.
Whew, it's cold out there.
East Point was the last lighthouse to be constructed before Prince Edward Island joined Confederation in 1873. A radio beacon was established at East Point in 1935 and commenced operation on November the 21st of that same year. East Point Lighthouse was recognized as a heritage place under the Prince Edward Island Heritage Places Protection Act on October the 3rd, 2012. On September the 25th, 2013, the lighthouse was awarded a provincially designated Heritage Places plaque and certificate. Before you leave East Point, make sure to go inside and ask for a tip-to-tip "I visited East Point" ribbon. You'll need it later. Ultimately, there is way too much history to go over here about East Point Lighthouse. The old fog alarm building is now a museum and craft and gift shop. I'll provide a link for East Point Lighthouse so you can read a little bit more about it. If you're a history buff, this is a great place to go and visit. About 25 kilometers to my immediate southwest from East Point is the Surrey East Lighthouse. On the eastern shore of Prince Edward Island, the Surrey River empties into the Northumberland Strait. The Mi'kmaq first settled the area around the river, followed by French Acadians, who were expelled by the British in 1758. While the Acadians were living along the river in 1724, they were inflicted by a plague of mice, or souris in French. And this incident led to the naming of the settlements on the flanks of the river. Surrey East, Surrey West, and Surrey East was incorporated into the town of Surrey on November the 14th, 1910. The first light was established in Surrey on 1879. Tenders were invited to construct the light on Knight's Point. In October of 1881, the light was altered to show a streak of red to indicate the anchorage ground sheltered by the breakwater. Andrew Leslie also constructed a keeper's dwelling attached to the tower that same year at a cost of $732. And in 1927, the keeper of the Surrey East Lighthouse was supplied with a hand-crank foghorn. Francis McIntosh was the last keeper of the lights, and he became the keeper in 1974. McIntosh was the last remaining active keeper in Prince Edward Island when he retired in June the 18th, 1991, after 30 years of service. The fog alarm at the station remained active for a few more years until being discontinued in 1999. Surrey East Lighthouse, which today emits a signal of 2 seconds of white light followed by 2 seconds of darkness, still stands guard over the harbour that is home to several fishing vessels as well as a ferry that serves the Magdalene Islands. Surrey East Lighthouse was recognized as a heritage place under the Prince Edward Island Heritage Places Protection Act on November the 1st, 2011. On September the 25th, 2013, the lighthouse was awarded a provincially designated Heritage Place plaque and certificate. I'll provide a link in the comments section for the Surrey Lighthouse. There's just too much information and I just couldn't fit it all in here. Approximately 24 kilometers southwest of Surrey is the community of Annandale. I have been all over Prince Edward Island many times, and I have never spent any time in Annandale, ever. So our first stop is going to be the Annandale Front Range Light. In 1898, the Annandale Range Lights were established on land purchased from Alfred Robertson and George Edwin McFarlane at a cost of $80 to guide mariners into Grand River and to the wharf at Annandale. The lights commenced operation on August the 26th of that year with Alfred Robertson as its first keeper. The front range light was placed in the village of Annandale, 220 feet north of the shore and 312 feet northeast of the public wharf. At some point, the original front range was replaced by the present square pyramidal tower that stands 5.2 meters tall. The front tower that this one here at the wharf has replaced is sitting back on the bluff behind its companion rear. I'll show you that in just a little bit. Today it still emits a red channel beacon. Just 1.7 kilometers away, if you look closely in the background, you can see our next destination, which is the rear range light. Now there's a couple of ways to get to the rear range. You can travel down the Annandale Wharf Road, turn left and go down to the Norton's Road, and where Norton's Road turns into the River Road, you can stop there. Or you can go up to the top of Annandale Road, go down Norton's Road and this dirt road, and you can get to the same spot from there. I took the dirt road just because I wanted to have a look at it and see what it was like. There's another way down there, which in my opinion is the best route down there. It's the Lighthouse Road. It will get you access to both of them, but you have to get onto the beach, and I'll show you that in just a second. If you want access to both lighthouses, in my opinion, this is your best bet. Go down the Lighthouse Road. It is dirt, however, it's hard pack, there's no sand, and it's a really nice little ride down there. No problem for any vehicle to get down here. Oh, by the way, if you go for a hike down the beach to get access to the lighthouses, bring bug spray. Today the tide was low, so you can walk straight out there. That is the former Front Range Lighthouse. It was decommissioned and replaced by the one that's up front right now. If you continue around the point, you can get close access to the rear range. But I didn't, I cheated, and you're going to see in a minute. Both the former front and the rear are both on private property, so the only way you can access them is from the beach. The back range light was erected on the north shore of the Grand River, 1,323 meters from the front light. The structure was square, open-frame tower with sloping sides, surmounted and was enclosed by a wooden lantern. The side of the tower facing the channel was slanted to make it more conspicuous, and the whole structure was painted white. On October the 11th, 1900, the back range light tower was toppled by a gale. Following year, the rear tower was replaced by a new structure situated 29.3 meters closer to the front range along the same range line. The range lights were electrified in June 1960, and Chester Banks was appointed the caretaker at an annual salary of $100 a year to keep an eye on them. I saw these two fishing boats out there, so I thought, well, I'll send the drone out and have a look and see what they're doing. I chickened out and turned it around after a kilometer. In 1988, the Annandale back range light was sheathed, reshingled, and the rear range lighthouse was discontinued in 2015. The front still continues to be a beacon. In late October 2020, the Annandale rear range lighthouse was designated a heritage lighthouse under Canada's Heritage Lighthouse Protection Act. The act protects the heritage character of the lighthouses and requires that they are reasonably maintained. Today it serves as an Airbnb. If you're lucky like I was, when you come down this road, it's covered in apple blossoms and the smell is gorgeous. Well, I can't tell you how nice the smell is through here with all these apple blossoms. It's absolutely lovely. 32 kilometers southwest of Annandale is our next destination. It's situated on a peninsula, bounded on the north by the Cardigan River and on the south by the Brudenell River that is joined by the Montague River. The town of Georgetown is also known as Three Rivers. To help guide vessels into the Cardigan River, the largest of the three rivers, a lighthouse was established on a point just upstream from the ferry wharf and below Morrison's Beach. The light, which was first exhibited in September the 1st, 1883, appeared green seaward and white to the northeast. When vessels coming from the south saw the green light turn to white, they knew they could safely anchor on Cardigan Bay. R. Campbell was paid $125 for land for the tower, and George Whitman received $330 contract to construct the lighthouse. The land surrounding the lighthouse was part of a land grant to the Morrison family in 1835 from King William IV of England. Margaret Morrison Lindsay was in possession of the land when it was purchased for the lighthouse. Angus Morrison was the first keeper of the Cardigan River Lighthouse and earned an annual salary of $100. John D. Morrison was appointed keeper on August the 15th, 1901. The Cardigan River Lighthouse served the Cardigan River until 1967, and John D. Morrison Jr. served as the final keeper until 1965, when the light became automated. Fearing that the youngsters using the decommissioned Cardigan River Lighthouse as a party place might accidentally set it on fire, Paul and Rosemary Bathchilder purchased the tower in the 1980s from Crown Assets and moved it roughly 305 meters from its former home on the point to its current location. The tower was placed on skids and a bulldozer was used to tow it along the shore. Things were progressing well until the bulldozer veered into the muck and a second bulldozer had to be brought in to extract the first. As a child, Rosemary Bathchilder used to accompany Joyce Fogarty, a niece of the keeper, John Morrison, to the tower and watch him light the kerosene lamps. In 2009, the Bathchilders gifted the tower to one of their daughters, who now plans to convert it into a cottage for personal use. "26 kilometers west, south, and east is our next destination, and it's the Georgetown Range Lighthouses. Georgetown, the country seat of Kings County, is situated on the southeast part of Cardigan Bay, a peninsula bound by the Brudenell and Montague rivers on the south and the Cardigan River on the north. Early settlers called the area Three Rivers, but after the English gained control of Acadia, Cardigan Point was surveyed in 1768 as a site for Georgetown, named after King George III. Both Georgetown front and rear range lights were constructed in 1868. They were placed there in order to help guide vessels into the harbor. Unfortunately, both of these lighthouses are completely on private property, so you can't really gain any real close access to them, but you can see them from a distance. This one was rebuilt in 1894 because the original was completely destroyed in a fire. Just up the road from the rear is the front range light. It's a cylinder tower, 7.1 meters tall with a red and white band. It dates from 1969, which is when the previous lighthouse was discontinued. The historic 1895 lighthouse is privately owned and houses a small apartment. Eli George Vatcher served as the last keeper of these two lights. When World War II broke out, even though he was in his 40s, Eli enlisted and served in France, Belgium, before returning and resuming his light-keeping duty in 1945. Eli was still serving as the keeper when the range lights were electrified in 1960, and he subsequently served as caretaker of the lights at a greatly reduced salary. In 2017, Georgetown range lights were discontinued and the cylindrical tower that supported the front range was removed.
And the scenery just keeps changing, but these floats, they just stay the same. Same old fearful eyes are staring, asking me to take the blame for their shame, for their shame.
The journey continues next time as we explore the central south coast of Prince Edward Island's lighthouses, an adventure where we've never adventured before. Take care.